Welcome back to the podcast today with me, Johnny Parday. Today, I welcome Megan to the show, where we're going to be talking about many different topics. We're going to be focusing on self-love. We're going to be talking a little bit about self-worth, of course. We're going to be talking about fulfillment, people pleasing, and many more subjects of value to you today. So, just a quick introduction to Megan, and then we will dive into today's conversation. So, I know Megan from the Peter Sage world. I often talk about Peter Sage on this podcast. It's also been a previous guest. So, if you want to find an episode for that, let me know. We can always go back to that. So Megan is a fellow EMF grad. She's actually an EMF trainer, Elite Mentorship Forum, really sharing some of this work. And she describes herself as a people pleaser turned transformational life coach. So there's been quite a transformation in her life, and I'm sure we're going to go into the story in a moment. So, Megan, welcome to the show today. Glad we could make the time and have you on board. For anyone listening, Megan's got an amazing background of the world, Elite Mentorship Forum background. So yeah, maybe really useful to hear a little bit, first of all, about what really sparked this transformation in your life, and maybe some highlights in your story from this point where you were really needing to people please, because I know the listeners could really resonate with this, like I can, as someone who really struggled with people pleasing for many years, and catch myself now and then, to actually making this big transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Johnny. It's so great to be here with you. So people pleasing has been something I was taught from early childhood. I was raised in a family where there was one in particular parent who was very emotionally, verbally abusive and often physically abusive. And I learned to please and to let go of whatever I needed, what mattered to me in order to stay safe and in order to feel loved and to feel appreciated and accepted. And, that carried forward into my adult life where I landed myself in tumultuous relationships and friendships, and it was always about the other person first and foremost. And ultimately, the biggest incidents in my world that really had a huge impact on me, which then led to my ultimate transformation. Was I married a sociopathic narcissist, and he attempted to take my life, brutally raped and strangled me, and beat me for hours before he had anticipated killing me. And fortunately, he did not, and I survived. And once he was finally imprisoned and I felt safe knowing that I was safe, I started asking myself some really deep questions. How did I allow myself to be in this situation? How did I allow myself to overlook these red flags, even though there were not a lot, there were enough? And how did I not respect myself and choose what felt right to me in each moment, in order to just simply see the good in this person. And I wanted answers. And so, those great big questions after this really horrible thing that happened, were a godsend. And eventually, about a year after asking those questions, about a year after he was imprisoned, and countless personal development programs and thousands of dollars spent, I finally found the Elite Mentorship Forum and took the big scary dive into investing in myself and investing in the program. And I have come out the other side a completely different person and am very excited to say I'm no longer a people pleaser.
Oh, amazing, Megan. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing your story. And just for the listener, anyone not familiar, we're talking about the Elite Mentorship Forum, or EMF, a little bit. So this is a program from a guy called Peter Sage, who I mentioned, who's a self mastery expert, also an exceptional entrepreneur. and just the general kind of adventure man jumping out of planes, rowing across the Atlantic, all these kind of things. Who's developed this forum to really help people. I personally think it's the best program I've done in personal growth as well. And I've done all the Tony Robbins, all those kind of things, which were amazing. So, yeah, it's just a little bit of background for the listener because I talk about it a lot as well. So, yeah, that's amazing that you spent a lot and actually you found something that really, really helped you. For you, just out of like curiosity, how did you find it was different, like EMF, the Elite Mentorship Forum, from all the other things you had done? Like, totally relate to spending thousands of dollars and hours on other programs. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear what you found different and useful from this.
Excellent, excellent question. So, there were so many programs that I did, and they all gave you this amazing feeling of hopefulness that, okay, this is the answer. And by the time that you completed it, if you did complete, because it became so stagnant and boring, and there was such a lack of real content and value, that, sometimes you just didn't finish them and you were on your search for the next program because maybe the next one was going to be it. But they all gave a hopefulness, but they never gave any real results to me. And I feel that I can speak for many in that statement. And so when I came across Peter's work and the Elite Mentorship Forum, it was so profoundly different because the message resonated in a completely different way. It was like a bell was ringing. It was like, this is it. This is the one. And what Peter Sage has provided within the Elite Mentorship Forum is actual results. He gives you the how to. Like all of the other programs, they tell you what it is that you need to do and how you need to live your life, but they don't tell you the how to do it. They tell you that you should be more enlightened. You should focus on self-love. You should have high self-esteem, that you should, really have a higher vibration and be heart-centered. And it's like you go through it and you go, yeah, but how? How do I do that? And for a typical everyday person who's not been raised in that world where you're really focused on a heart-centered lovingness towards yourself or having an understanding of how to really navigate the world and how the world really works, it's just a big question. It's a big question mark. You're going, how do I do this? And when I dove into the Elite Mentorship Forum, it was so phenomenal because not only do you understand the why, because Peter tells you the why, and he tells you the how you're going to do it, and then he actually gives you instruction and step by step along the way. And then within that, there is accountability and partnership that's created so that you stay on track, you stay on task, and you don't fall off, not because it's not valuable. Sometimes you want to fall off because it feels really hard because you're challenging yourself and doing things you've never done before. But I think that is the biggest difference is Peter Sage gives you the how. Um, and gives you these amazing tools that you can use again and again and again. They never expire. It's okay, I've transformed this part of my life. 6 months later, I can do the same tools again, and I get to transform my life again. And I continue to build on that and grow and continue to evolve into the best version of myself. And I never received that with any of the other programs. So it's all about receiving the how. How do you do it? It's amazing.
Mm. Oh, that's great. Some great insights you got from the Elite Mentorship Forum from EMF. Just some of those practical tips and actually how to transform rather than okay, this is what you need to do. That's kind of like a little bit different. So, that and it's really amazing to hear that you've been able to see a lot of progress in yourself through that, and I know that as well, and I know lots of EMF fellow students or grads have said the same as well. For you, what have you found really useful for dealing with like people pleasing? Is there anything in particular that you found in terms of tools or practices, or just even an intention that's helped you work through some of this people pleasing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the number one thing has been learning how to have a relationship with myself.
Hmm.
And previously when I was wrapped up in people pleasing, the last thing I had was a relationship with myself. I had a relationship with everyone else and what was best for them. But I
Mm,
didn't understand what it really meant to have a relationship with myself and to have self-love. Because what I believed it to be, what I had been taught it to be, was that if I loved myself and put my needs, my desires, my wants, put all of those things first, then I was conceited, I was arrogant, I was selfish, and I was showing those other people in my world I didn't care about them.
mm,
And so, but really cultivating a sense of self-love and self-worth was massively powerful. And finally being able to let go of that fear of being conceited, arrogant, selfish, whatever that may look like. I was able to let go of that for the first time. And I had this amazing sense of falling in love with myself in a way that I never knew was possible. It was absolutely profound. And so the biggest thing for me to let go of people pleasing was to have true love for myself and to recognize my worth and
mm,
that I'm worthy and deserving. And so even though sometimes it's still a challenge because I'm still learning as I go along, I can say no to people. I can say no to requests. I can avoid and ignore people that, random person on Facebook that might say something. And whereas in the past, I had to respond to everyone because I had to appease everyone because if I didn't, maybe someone would think I didn't like them and maybe they would reject me if I didn't respond or they would say something negative. And even if they do, it doesn't affect me anymore because I know who I am and I know my worth, and I know that I'm worthy and valuable, and I have a lot to offer the world, regardless of what anybody else says or does, because of their own paradigm. And so, self-love, learning what that really means, and allowing myself to fall in love with myself has been paramount.
oh wow, yeah. Just rather than trying to please people to kind of get that gap and then not being rejected, I think was that some of the terms you were using there, being able to like really focus on who you are and actually loving yourself first. Love that around like the people pleasing element. For you, you've kind of know. It sounds like you've been on this journey. You feel like you know who you are and being able to connect with yourself, the relationship, and yeah, you said it's an ongoing sort of process. I believe that as well. It's like for the rest of the life. For you, like in terms of you, obviously this transformational coach, you've worked to that through like over the time in terms of like finding what you want to do. I know a lot of people struggle with that, like what is going to fulfill me, what is like purposeful in my life. How have you discovered that for yourself? Has it just been some of that self-love practice and understanding more about you? Has it been experimenting with different things? Yeah, just always curious on how people find, what it is for them in terms of purpose and fulfillment.
Yeah, so it's been a journey to get here. I've always known I wanted to help people, and in fact,
Mm.
my first husband, the father of my children, he passed away 13 years ago. Our children were very young, 3 years old and 3 months old, and after he passed away, about 2 years later, I went back to school to study psychology because I wanted to help the grieving world. I wanted to help people who are going through something similar to what I had gone through. And I realized that most people don't actually want to help themselves. They just want someone to fix their problems. And that became really frustrating for me. And so I stopped. I dropped out of school and I discontinued it. And I knew I still wanted to help people. I still wanted to serve people and just make people smile, put a smile on their face and joy in their heart.
Mm.
And I didn't know what that looked like. Um, but I always knew I had this amazing ability to just share the wisdom I've gained through the experiences that I've had and gone through, as well as the knowledge that I've obtained. And I didn't know how to do it. And I remember when I first came across the Elite Mentorship Forum, and the question was posed to me if I would want to be a trainer for the program. And I hadn't even been through the program yet. But every ounce of my being was on fire. My body was tingling. I felt I was on top of the world. I was weightless. It felt so incredible. And I knew I had to say yes. And so, as I've gone through the process of going through the program, going through it again, and learning about myself and reinventing myself in a way that feels right to me, I'm similar in many ways to who I was, but I'm so vastly different because I'm just this much better version of me than I ever was.
Mm.
And it's just continued to come naturally to me that, yes, this feels right. Yes, this is who I am. Yes, I get to be this beacon of light for other people to help them become who they want to become. And, I think when you truly find fulfillment, your body is on it, it lights up
Mm.
and you get to be that light. And people are attracted to you in a way they've never been attracted to you because you feel fulfillment and you feel fulfilled and grateful at the end of every single day. I get to sit there and watch my students every single time I meet with them every week, and I've got 4 groups going through it right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and every single one of those groups, all of those people, there's this amazing excitement and light that comes from them that I didn't see the week before. And that lights me up, and it's so amazing. And it was a challenge to actually start acting as and believing that I was a trainer because I still had a lot of stuff from the past. It wasn't that long ago that
Mm.
I allowed myself to get married to a sociopathic narcissist. So there was a lot of doubt within myself, but with the work that we do, you grow beyond that and you realize it's okay to take that step and do it anyway. When you're afraid, like your best life, the life of your dreams is just one step beyond fear. So you step outside of the fear, and the next thing you know, you're on fire and you're helping people in the way that feels right for you. You feel it, you know it. Like, I don't have to go to a job every single day where I'm dreading going to work and dreading what my job is and hate my boss and, oh, this is terrible, right? I don't have to do that. I have this amazing career that I've chosen for myself. I get to be an entrepreneur and I get to help other people uplift themselves, change themselves, and find their passion, their purpose, and their fulfillment. And it's not that difficult. It's really just learning about who am I? What is it that I want? What feels right for me? And taking the leap and trusting that the universe has got your back. And when you do what it is that fulfills you, you cannot fail,
Mm.
period. You can't fail.
Mm. It sounds like a lot of feeling into it because I know I've certainly been guilty of it and even coaching people in the past that we can get very in our heads, especially with all the information coming in left, right, and centre. Peter talks about a lot. Um, anti they call it anti-social media or the constant negative news or whatever he labels things like that. There's this information overload. But for you, it sounds like um, even though we're always going to get into our head at some point, but you really like fell into it, and it was more kind of like a feeling for you. Um, does that be accurate to say?
Absolutely. That is where the majority of our answers lie, is the feeling. How do we feel? Tap into your body, learn to listen to yourself. And, when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or whatever it may be, and you've got all of these responsibilities that are calling your name, and that's all you can think about. I have a note on my desk that just says mindful pause for clarity. And I will literally take a step back and I will close my eyes and I will take several deep breaths through my diaphragm. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, do some breath work, and allow myself to just calm down and get out of my head and start to feel into my body because that's where every single answer is. If it is a no, I feel it. There's a feeling of discord, there's a feeling of pain or discomfort. If it's a yes, my body is zinging. It is excited, it is on fire. It's like tingling. Every answer is within your body. It's your intuition, and you will know it. You just have to learn to tap into it if you haven't done so previously. And it can be as simple as taking a pause for some clarity. Just a pause, take a few breaths, learn to do a little bit of breath work. It's not hard. Take some slow breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, through the diaphragm, and allow yourself to just feel your body. And it will give you all of the answers that you need.
Hmm. That's amazing. Like the power of the body. I've discovered through it like being a very project management sales background, very kind of like left brain. So I love the way that Peter's like taught us to like just write, evidence and things like that. That the power of breath work and becoming a facilitator and that and the amount of insights you can get from the body is just like, wow, I couldn't explain that to the left brain. It's incredible, right? I love it. I've also got my little postcard here of the observe and feel and unidentify and then feel into the body. So yeah, I love you're talking about that. You touched on something else, Megan, which I thought was a really important point for the listener. And you said about you wanted to be this like elite. You got offered this opportunity or heard about this opportunity to be a trainer, right? And you're still working on your own stuff. And you're like, well, I've got all these things, that I'm still like working through, and I'm maybe not ready. But then actually you push through that a little bit. Yeah, I just want to touch on that a little bit more because sort of linked to that, I hear some people talk about, I feel like an imposter to do this. I don't feel ready. Who am I to be doing this kind of thing? And I've definitely been there as well many times in my life. So yeah, just curious on like anyone going through that, the kind of maybe self-talk you might guide them to do through that.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is a real thing and it is very prevalent for a lot of people.
Mm,
And I know it sometimes it still creeps in with me.
mm,
And
too.
I remind myself, so who am I listening to? Because there's basically two voices that come to me, two mindsets that I have all the time. And I have the criticizer who is hey, who are you to be teaching people and training them? Who are you to be helping people change their lives? And then I have the um there's the criticizer and then there's the champion. The champion is the one who is saying, you got this. You can do this. And so it's about choosing which voice you listen to. And you can always tap into the champion. You can always remind yourself that, I may not know everything, but guess what? No one knows everything. No one knows everything. We're supposed to make mistakes. We are supposed to learn from those mistakes. There is no failures. There is simply opportunities to learn. You cannot get it wrong. And one of the things that I remind myself regularly is that if I want to be the best possible trainer I can be, the best way I can do it is to jump in feet first and to actually go out and help my students because I'm going to do my best. I'm going to acknowledge when I don't know something. I'm going to find the answers. And most of all, I'm going to learn from my students.
Mm,
I'm going to learn from my students. And I learn from them every day. And, here I was a year ago. I was certified as a trainer, terrified to take on that role, didn't believe I was capable of doing so because I felt like an imposter. And now, not only am I in the middle of helping lead four cohorts or four groups of people, I'm also one of those is with the intention of helping new trainers who have not yet stepped into their identity as a trainer and teaching them and allowing them opportunity to give it a try. So sometimes if you feel like you're an imposter, find a mentor. Find somebody who's going to help you to step in and really recognize and at least practice doing it. And, really remind yourself that the best way to actually learn how to teach is to teach. The best way to learn how to do something is to step out and do it. Step beyond the fear. Because again, your best life is on the other side of fear.
mm. Sounds like you had a willingness to allow yourself to make mistakes, and certainly can relate to like being like, oh, mess this up. I don't want to mess that up again. And that criticizer can get really, really loud if you let it, if you feed it too much and not the champion, right? It sounds like for you though, it was like being able to allow yourself to make mistakes, not intentionally, but, learn from your students if you didn't know something. So yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds,
It's so important. You have to recognize that I teach my children this every day.
mm,
There are no mistakes. There are no failures. There are moments in life that are teaching moments, they're learning moments, and it's opportunity to grow. Because how many people who sit on their couch and have the same life day in and day out and don't do anything, they don't change anything because this feels really comfortable, do they ever grow? Do they ever change? Do they ever reach the goals that they've had? Or do they just let all of those dreams fall to the wayside, believing they could never happen? And they oftentimes do so because they're so afraid of taking that next step because what if they fail? Okay, so what if you fail? It's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn. You now know how to not do it, at least one way to not do it. And so you have to take that step. You have to have the faith and the belief in yourself. And that goes all the way back to self-love and self-worth and building that muscle. And when you build that muscle, then you can know, all right, so even if I screw up and I don't get it right, I don't get it right now. And I get to learn from that and I can get it right next time. And it's okay if I acknowledge to another human being,
Mm,
hey, I don't know this right now, but I'm gonna find out. And because when you pretend like you know everything and you have all the answers and you come up with some fluff to try to appease somebody, you actually don't gain any respect. You don't help anybody. But when you can honestly say, hey, you know what? I actually am not sure about the answer to this. I'm not sure about that, but
mm,
I'm going to find out for you. 99.999% of the time, they're going to go, wow, okay, that's humble. There's humility there. I respect this person for telling me they don't know every single thing because I don't know everything. I'm learning from them and they're gonna get back with me, and then you have to actually get back with them and let them know. You got to follow through. But people
mm,
actually find more respect in that, and they value that relationship you're creating with them. And most likely they're actually going to continue to be a student in some capacity. Maybe they want to come and continue doing private coaching with you. And worst case, they send you referrals because they recognize you're real, you're human, you're authentic,
mm,
and you're being true to yourself, and that your desire is to truly help them. Your goal in life is not to know everything. It's to help people and add value to their lives.
mm. That honesty and just not trying to pretend like you know it all. That's definitely a work in progress I've been doing through my life, having to know everything about everyone. But yeah, I don't know about you, Megan, but when I've personally just like I've been like trying to say I knew something and I didn't, it kind of hurt like my relationship myself as well. It's like, well, I don't want to be. I'm going to lie because I don't want them to see real me, and that's actually quite a little bit of damage to my self love each time I did that. So I've had to learn to be honest over time. I don't know if you find the same or
I
different.
do. I do, absolutely. I mean, when I tell a little white lie or a fib and I try to pretend like I know what I'm talking about when I don't, it makes me feel start to judge myself and I look down on myself. And, it's those little negative feelings. And your body, my body at least, is not zinging. There's all of this discord. I feel heavy and pleasant. And I want to right the wrong. And it's funny how hard it feels to right the wrong and just simply speak up and say, you know what, I actually misspoke. I shouldn't have said that I knew this because I really didn't. And I want to, honor you to the best of my ability, honor myself to the best of my ability. And I want to make sure that I actually understand what this information is so I can give you the right information. I'm sorry I misled you. It's amazing because it's like a weight off your shoulders. You feel lighter, you feel proud of yourself, and you finally start to feel that love for yourself again. You don't feel that shame and embarrassment and whatever else it may be.
Mm,
So yeah, it's super important to uh, just simply step outside of that fear and go, okay, somebody might look at me a certain way, and that's okay because that's their choice. But how do I want to look at me? How do I want to feel about myself?
mm,
Honor that first and foremost.
mm. Important prioritization. How do you want to feel about you? Megan, I want to kind of switch a little bit from because we've been talking about self. Well, this does link to self love, I believe, as well. But we've been talking about some of these tools and like teaching and going out there and honoring yourself. I know you've been through quite a lot of events in your life. You know, we've all go through different things, and you very courageously shared some of the things you went through from relationships to childhood. Um, is there been a process that you've had to do to process some of this? Is it something that you do ongoing? I know for me, for example, like, and people I've worked with, like sometimes we do breath work and it sometimes can bring up a lot of emotions and release it. Yeah, I just wondered for you because yeah, you've had these experiences, and if there's been a process or there's still a process for you to kind of feel and into these things a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So for many, many years, it was just simply having to find a way to be okay with it. But it always stuck with me. And I didn't realize how much it stuck with me until recently. And going through the Elite Mentorship Forum, going through EMF, there are some tools that we learn there that are incredibly valuable that helped me. For instance, one of the tools that we learn, um, I had no idea about forgiveness, what that really means, the depth of it. It was always, okay, I accept an apology, but then it was content, like with conditions and, all of these things because I still had this contention towards a person, right?
Mm,
And so, but I shared about my sociopathic narcissist, right? And the amazing thing was the tools that we learn in EMF. It was so amazing that I have actually found complete and utter forgiveness for him to a point where I simply feel a sense of sorrow and um I just feel sorrow and I feel sorry for him. But at the same time, I can love him as a human being and have gratitude for the gift that he gave me, which was the gift to then explore how I could change my life and transform my life. But then there's also another tool that we use that I've recently learned how to use that tool in a much deeper way. And it's unleashing all of this incredible stuff that has been a lifetime of things, starting from early childhood, as early as age 2. And I've been going through this exercise, and it's taken me a couple of months to go through it because as I go through it, more comes up and more comes up and more comes out. And it's amazing because I'm learning the patterns and the habits, and the rules around those habits and those patterns, the values that I want to have. I'm learning the rules that I have created, that I created starting back at age 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm seeing the patterns that have been habitual throughout my entire adult life based on stuff that happened when I was a young child. And I've had these amazing releases. I had like this serious back pain going on for a hot minute. It was years of this particular back pain, and there was nothing medically wrong with me. Couldn't figure it out. And I was working with one of my colleagues, and we were going through this process, and she had a couple questions for me, and all of a sudden this memory came up, and I didn't even express it verbally to her. I just finally acknowledged it and remembered it. And, I all of a sudden had this tingling in my body and I had this weird sensation in my back. And now I've got tears in my eyes that are uncontrollable. And it was the most insane thing. The next day I was exhausted. I had this huge emotional release and I've not had the back pain since for the
wow.
first time in probably 10 years, if not more. And so it's been really incredible because there's tools that we learn and they're simple. They really are. You just have to do the work, trust the process, actually do the work. And I've gone through it, and like I said, I go through it again and again because there's something new that comes up. There's something as I heal from one thing from the past,
Mm,
it gives me the opportunity to now open to heal another piece and part of the past.
mm,
Really incredible. But yes, there's several tools that I use, and I could share them, but they wouldn't make as much sense without actually having the foundation of what we teach.
mm. No, no, it's amazing that you go through got all these tools for like healing and then processing things. And yeah, like I feel like there's always stuff that's coming up for me as well. When you said, "Oh, there's something else," oh, that's interesting. looking at I now try and look at things with curiosity than frustration. I made my own saying up saying trade frustration for curiosity where possible. But yeah, just that it's an ongoing process. I also what you first talked about with, the forgiveness piece as well. I remember something very profound Peter says, and I think some people may find it hard to get on board with, and it was if you had their beliefs, their life, their values, you would behave in exactly the same way. And then it's always gonna be difficult for some individual to be like, no, I wouldn't. But when I heard him say that, it just like really hit home, and I'm like, huh, I would act in that way. It's like because that's their, limiting. Like I've got limiting beliefs, we've got different like experiences. I think for me that really helped the forgiveness piece as well. Just seeing it from that piece.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big hurdle for me because I kept hearing like, put yourself in their shoes. And I finally brought it up with Peter and I was like, how in the world do I put myself in this
It's a
person's
little bit
shoes? Like
different,
such a
yeah.
heinous thing. How could I possibly understand what that's even like? And he gave me some amazing wisdom and said, think about what their life experiences have been. What transpired when they were a child? What did they go through when they were a child? And so now how does that transfer over to being adults? And then it started to make sense to me. And it was like, okay, now I can see how he could have done what he did. Even if it still doesn't make logical sense in my mind. I can put the pieces together. I could follow that breadcrumb trail and see how, okay, for him, that's what made sense, sadly. And that was really the key to, the finalizing of that true forgiveness, because otherwise, forgiveness can seemingly impossible for
Mm,
most people because, like I said, it's usually conditional and transactional. So usually they go so far with it, but they don't really mean it. It's not they are not embracing it to the depths of their core. And I think one of the things that really was profound for me was realizing that forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness is for you.
mm,
Because when you choose to hold on to the angst, the anger, the fear, the sadness, whatever it may be, that's taking away from who you are. And you're holding on to that in some way that person now has power over you. And they continue to have that power over you, even when you think they don't.
mm,
And so when you can find the way to have true and utter forgiveness, now all of a sudden you are free. You are free to be you. You are free to live your life. You are free to love yourself, to love your family, to love your friends, and to love the world at large and just simply be and to contribute in an amazing and positive way. Because now you're free. You are no longer under the constraints of whatever the event was.
mm,
And to be free is an amazingly powerful feeling. It is incredible.
mm, It's not condemning what they did, or it's kind of it's for you. You're saying
It is
like,
for you,
yeah,
100% for you.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah. Love that definition, or kind of your perspective on forgiveness and just allowing that freedom, because I think that's what we all want, but it's easy to focus on what we don't want, or just the anger and the frustration or the upset or the sadness or the grief. But yeah, it's practice, like you said. You've been doing these things again and again and again. And also, just going back to what you said, another thing kind of pointed out that you shared about your ex relationship, and Peter talks about these different levels of assignments we get, right? So like someone cutting you up in traffic is a different level from what you went through in that particular relationship. Like I can think of times like I just felt disrespected in the breakup, just didn't like talk, or and that, and that forgiveness, like compare, it's not about comparing, but there may be another case like you shared is going to be that's a harder assignment. And then I remember him talking about Viktor Frankl and those kind of scenarios, Nelson Mandela's, and then just as examples of what was possible. Viktor Frankl, I think, was forgiving the guards in the end from being in hospital. And Nelson Mandela, he didn't go out after he was in prison and then start going, I'm so angry. It was all about we become one. So again, I think I learned that it is some of the assignments you're given are a bit more challenging. So that's really inspiring what you've been able to do from like the situations you've gone through in life as well. So yeah, if you're someone listening, you find it hard to forgive someone, don't or forgive the situation of or have that forgiveness. I would also just emphasize that some things are going to be harder than others, like you were kind of touching on a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely going to be situations that are more difficult than others, but um, it's one of the wonderful gifts I've given myself is to recognize that in every challenge that we receive, whether it's something that someone has done to us and wronged us, or, the person that cuts us off in traffic, they're every one of them is a gift in some way or another. The person that cut you off in traffic, they could have prevented you from in a traffic
Mm.
accident down the road. You never know. And you don't have to know what it is, but you can recognize it as a gift. So one of my favorite things to ask myself multiple times a day is, what are you doing with the gift that you've been given?
Ooh.
They're all gifts. Even the hardest of the hard, even almost losing your life to the person you loved and trusted. What are you choosing to do with the gift that you've been given? Because it is a gift. And it's okay to not be able to see that right away. It's a practice. And that's the amazing thing is that I love knowing that I have the tools that I can share and teach to people to help them learn how to do that. But it's possible. It's always possible. So, what have you done with the gift you've been given?
Great question. Again, the practice is a reoccurring theme here. It's not an overnight thing. It's it's
Right.
repetition, repetition. But yeah,
Yep.
certainly got the tools there. So yeah, Megan, great having you on today. Really appreciate everything you shared and some really great tips and guidance for the listener. Just before we round off today, it'd be really great to hear where maybe the listener can get in touch with you, find out about your work. I know you lead obviously cohorts through EMF and you do your transformational coaching. Yeah, first of all, where can the listener find you if they want to reach you? And secondly, is there anything you'd like to share or round us off with today, or maybe a recap of something around self love or people pleasing before we finish today?
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Johnny. If anyone who would like to reach out to me, they can find me at the elitementorshiptrainer.com/Meghan. That's Meghan. And you can always schedule an appointment with me there. And outside of that, I would just share with the listeners, like, thank you so much for listening. I hope that there has been some inspiration for you. And always know that you are worthy, you are deserving, and you are absolutely perfect exactly where you are. And when you're ready to up level your life, self-love is an absolute number one key.
Oh, absolutely. So, once again, Megan, thank you for being here, and we'll be sure to include that link so the listener can reach out. Thanks again, Megan. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Johnny.
Cool. So, that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.